that we address configuration, compliance, and conditional access policies for mobile device enrollment. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, in our last nugget, we left off here in the management portal for Microsoft Intune under Admin, Mobile Device Management, where we want to set up now a mobile device security policy by clicking on this link to get started. Or you can just go right to Policy and Configuration Policies. But regardless, you simply click on Add here. And the whole objective that we've got going on here is that we want to kind of manage and control the security of all these devices. It's kind of the wild west of all these devices out there, and on their own there really isn't any security that we're in control of. You can do this for all the various mobile operating systems, Android, iOS, and Windows, and then you can also do it for desktop computers as well, so you can set up the Intune agent settings and so forth. Okay, but what we'll do here is go to the common mobile device settings and set up the mobile device security settings. Now, these have duplicate settings to what you'll find in many of the other options that we have under here. For example, the general configuration for iOS. That would have a lot of the same exact settings that I'm about to show you for mobile device security. The difference here is this becomes the default, and then if I have more specific settings under iOS that I want to maybe override, then I can set those settings in the iOS settings or whichever other operating system I'm interested in. Now, I could create a deploy policy with the recommended settings, and then it'll just do that. It'll immediately appear here in the background, or I could create and deploy a custom policy. I'm going to choose the custom policy only so you can see which settings there are, and we'll go ahead and get started with this one. So I'll just call this, CBT nuggets default config policy. All right, and a description if you want. So as we go down through this, one thing you can notice here is that you can flick this switch to make sure that all settings are configured. Notice that some of these are green, meaning they're turned on. Some of these are gray, meaning that they're not. That would simply turn all of them on. What we could do, though, is then to specify what we want. Do we want a password to unlock mobile devices? Probably yes, if we're concerned that these mobile devices could be a security leak. What kind of a password type do we want? Well, there's alphanumeric or numeric. I'm going to choose numeric because, at least with the iPhone, that's normally what you'll have. And then we can also specify the length. By default, it's 4 here. With iOS 9 and later, you can go 4 or 6. But I'm just going to choose 4 for our purposes. And when I say 4 or 6, I mean in the actual UI of that iPhone, for example. You can allow or not allow simple passwords. That would be something easy like 1234, 0000, that sort of thing. For demo purposes, I'm going to turn that on only to make the demo go simple. And then scrolling further down here, let's take a look at this one. The number of repeated sign-in failures is 4 by default, but can you imagine backing that down to 1 so that if someone enters in the wrong password one time, their device gets wiped out? Wow. Great for practical jokes, but not so good for the corporation. And then you can see some of the rest of these. Password history is an important one, possibly, so that you don't have people repeating their previous passwords. The password quality is not configured, but you can make that at least alphanumeric, and you can see some of the rest of these. I'm going to disable that one for our purposes. You can allow a picture password and PIN if is not configured right now, but you can allow picture password and PIN. A lot of different things involved here. For iOS devices, this is significant. You can allow a fingerprint unlock. If you want to. Right now, that's not configured, but you could disable that if you wanted to by selecting no. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go back here, though. And then scrolling down here, you can see I've disallowed allowing screen captures as well. That might be useful because you might have, for example, emails set up through Exchange and Outlook where you can prevent users from forwarding emails to someone outside the company. They might be security sensitive. However, if they're not allowed to forward them, they could just open it up on their phone and then take a screen capture. So I'm going to prevent that using this method. The other things we could do would be to configure the cloud settings. So, for example, they could back up everything they have to the iCloud and then restore it somewhere else. Maybe restore it to a competitor's iPhone. Maybe they're a spy or something like that. I don't know. So they could restore that information, the documents, the photo stream. Again, maybe they have a photo of something that's security sensitive from within your organization, company secrets, things like that. Similar things to apply to the Google backup as well as the Google account autosync down here. You can allow mobile devices that don't support the settings to synchronize with Exchange ActiveSync, and you can just allow that to happen if you want. There's browser settings, a lot of these different ones I'll let you look through as well on your own. The apps are interesting as well because maybe I have tightly locked down corporate iPhones, let's say. And I don't want them to download any other apps, no games, no utilities, no nothing else. but I just want to maybe have only side-loaded apps from within Intune and no allowances for the App Store. Okay, so that could be a setting that I might configure there as well. And then having scrolled down further here, we can see that we can disallow the camera as well to turn that off completely. Again, someone might take the camera into, a secret manufacturing facility where we have company secrets and they're taking photographs of how we do things. We might not want that to take place. Again, lots of other things in Wi-Fi settings, other hardware settings that we can take a look at there. And I think we're just going to conclude here and just go ahead and save this policy as it is. Once we get to that, we can then say, do we want to deploy the policy now? And I'll go ahead and deploy this for the time being to all mobile devices. And I'll just click on Add there to make sure that it applies to that specific group. You can, of course, add additional groups or be more granular or specific if you want to here as well. We would also apply this possibly to ungrouped users. Remember, it does apply actually to users and to their devices. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK here to kind of collect everything in one. So that's configuration policies. There's a couple of other kind of policies here. I'm going to show you compliance policies, conditional access. I'll also show something about. These are all really probably outside of the scope. I don't think you're going to see a single exam question on the 697 exam about any of these things. And again, I'm showing you this because you kind of have to do it. You do have to know how to enroll mobile devices, but you can't do it unless you get through a couple of these things at least. You don't have to do conditional access, and that's going to be well outside of our scope. But the overall objective of that one really relates to Exchange, as you can see from these things here, as well as SharePoint. But the idea here is we don't want people to check their email on tablets or devices that are not managed by our company. So for example, if I were to go to dinner with a friend and I forgot and left my phone at home, I might say to my friend, hey, let me borrow your phone so I can log into my email. I got some important messages I forgot to look at. Well, I might even be able to get to the login and everything like that, but it wouldn't actually let me check that email because I don't have a managed device by my company. My friend's phone has probably never been enrolled by my company, therefore I would be rejected. Same with SharePoint. I can't just check my SharePoint documents on my friend's phone. If you do want to know more about that, outside of our scope here, I'll point you to this article right here, and that should get you a long ways there. Okay, a very good article, and it's really not that hard. Okay, but we will take a look here at compliance policies. So let's click here and add a policy and take a look. So then the first thing to see here is the compliance policy settings, and there's really only one setting there, and that is the validity period. So that if a computer, actually a device, does not check in within 30 days, then it's considered non-compliant. Then what we can do here is to add this specific compliance policy, and we can click on Add here. I'll just enter in something quickly here, CBT Nuggets Compliance Policy. And then you can, of course, describe it if you want to. Now, the things that we're looking at here are some of the things that we've seen already under the configuration policies. We just want to make sure that if they're outside of the scope, somehow they've circumvented it or turned off a feature that we want them to have, then we can make them non-compliant so that they cannot use corporate resources until they get that straightened out. There will be a message that pops up on the screen for the user, making that clear, by the way. And then what we could do here is, let me go down to find one here. There's one setting that's kind of important. There it is, the jailbreak setting. A lot of the rest of this we've already seen elsewhere through the configuration policies, but this one is really pretty critical. The device must not be jailbroken or rooted if you want to access our corporate resources. And the significance of that is, if you're not familiar with jailbroken devices, which is iOS for your Apple devices, or rooted for your Android devices, this is something you can do to circumvent default settings for those devices or safeguards that are put in place for those devices. For example, with both of those, you can only access normally applications from the App Store, for example, on iOS. But when it's jailbroken, you can use Cydia applications, which are, sometimes they're hacker tools, sometimes they're security-sensitive items. There might be something there that could circumvent, for example, the whole Intune management process. So you wouldn't want that, and so we would want to prevent any jailbroken or rooted devices from connecting. And that's pretty much it. I'm just going to go ahead and save this policy here, and I can go ahead and again deploy that policy to all users and all devices here to make sure that we cover everything. And that's kind of a baseline when I do to both of those. It's kind of the baseline entry level of security that I want to have for everybody for both the configuration and compliance policies. Now, once again, what we could do is to go into groups, and you can create additional groups and subgroups that might have differing policies, more secure or less secure, either way. And whichever one is further down on the set of groups, let me just go up there, further down on the set of groups will apply. So for example, here's all mobile devices. Maybe I would create an additional group here, and I had iOS devices or something like that, or marketing department devices. Those that have further down the hierarchy here, and you can kind of see it indents in here, further down the hierarchy will have precedence in terms of any conflicting policies that apply. In this nugget, we address configuration, compliance, and conditional access policies, which are important in enrolling your mobile devices. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.